Hi, my name's Harry, and today I'll be talking to you about my language and literacy journey. I believe my journey is like a fire in a fire pit. You know, it's constant, but especially at the start, there's an occasional flicker when the wind comes through. All right, but through adding wood, it begins to burn bright and it grows. Okay, and it continuously grows. All right. It also brings light to your life. Okay, like a fire brings light. Okay, it does this through learning how to communicate with people, okay, and forming friendships. From birth through to grade 6, this was my largest period of growth for my language and literacy journey. You start off with the interactions in kindergarten. Okay, you're meeting people for the first time. Okay, not with your parents. Okay, you're forming new friendships with other people. And you also start to have social interaction between yourself and adults. All right. I personally had to learn how to pronounce my L's. I couldn't do it. I would say Emin or Ibrary for lemon and library. Okay, I just couldn't say the letter L, which can be confusing for a child. You know, they don't know why they can't do it, but other kids can. Okay, but through speech therapy, I began to learn how to pronounce the letter L, and then I could say lemon and library easily. Then went on to have social interactions through beginner basketball programs. Okay, it's the same thing as kindergarten, except you're learning how to interact with kids in a different environment. It's a basketball environment instead of a learning environment. And the people that are teaching you are more paid volunteers. They don't earn as much, and they're not professionals. All right, they're just people from the basketball club willing to give their time to teach you. Whereas a kindergarten teacher is paid. They're also willing to give their time, but they're professional. I then went on to be part of a basketball team, an actual team. Okay, this leads to a lot different exposure to communication. You know, you've got your teammates. It's a different communication than just talking to your friend. Okay, you've got to talk to them on a basketball environment when you're playing a sport. Okay, it's much more rushed. You also got to learn how to speak to a coach, parents from the other team, opposition, and referees. They're all completely new people you're going to learn to be respectful towards, but also communicate with. During primary school, I learned a little bit of Greek. Not too much, but a little bit. And it's interesting, you know. You're learning different cultures. You're learning how to speak in their language, use their literacy, write their letters. Okay, and it's a lot different to your own. You got to learn stuff that might make you uncomfortable because you're not speaking it at home and you're not doing it all the time. It does help with your journey because you can use learning Greek in primary school. You can use learning a little bit of their culture later in life. You know, someone might be having a conversation about Greek gods or something, and you can chime in because you know a little bit about it. Right? It can help with you communicating with people in a different way. During this time, there are friendships that are born and they're remembered. Okay, you learn to communicate with people that you might communicate with forever. I've got 3 or 4 friends from primary school that I still talk to this day. Okay, and through my language and literacy journey, I was able to communicate with them when I was young, and now I can communicate with them now that I'm a bit older. During primary school, you do meet people with an improved social ability. You know, granted, in kindergarten, you go in, you've got a bit of your parents' help, and you're talking to people for the first time, but you've never done it before. You haven't met new people before. Going into primary school, you still got your parents' help a little bit, but you have met people before when you're going into primary school, so you can talk to people in a new and improved way because you've done it before. You've met people before. It's not a new concept to you. There's also a new relationship that you have with teachers. Okay, you've got to be a lot more respectful. They're not as much there just to look after you. Okay, kindergarten teachers do teach you a lot. Okay, but primary school teachers, it's a lot more about learning and less about looking after you. During this time, I also did singing lessons. You know, singing, using your voice in a different way. Okay, using your language in a different way. I also did music lessons. Okay, learning how to read sheet music. Okay, learning how to use your fingers to play an instrument. Okay, it's another form of language that people use. Then went on to high school, where learning became a lot more focused on the written language and literacy. You know, a lot of kindergarten, primary school, a lot of your language and literacy is learning how to speak to people, communication skills. Through high school, it becomes a lot more focused on your written ability. Okay, you're not learning how to spell out a word or write letters correctly. You're learning how to form it into a coherent sentence and how to put it into paragraphs to form pages and essays, okay, letters, stories. You're learning how to put it all together to make longer pieces of work. And there's a different way to interact with teachers as well. Okay, in primary school, I could call them by their first name. No dramas. High school, I got to be Mr., Mrs. It's a lot more formal. Okay, and you've got different teachers for every subject. Primary school, I got the same teacher teaching me maths, English, everything. At high school, I've got a different teacher for English, maths, science, PE, everything. Different teacher, different person I got to learn to interact with in different ways. Okay, which teacher do you have to give more respect to? Which teacher needs more respect? And which teachers can you be a little bit more like informal with? There is a high expectation with the communication with adults as you get older. For me, especially, Mum used to be a lot more on me saying, hello, Sam, for instance, instead of just saying hello to another adult. Okay, someone's dad was there, their name was Sam, I'd have to say hello, Sam. If I didn't use their name, Mum would be upset. Okay, so I've got to be a lot more polite to people that are older than me. And you use this formal language not only in speak, but in your essay writing or letter writing. If you're writing to a teacher, you've got to learn how to write a proper letter to your teacher, a proper email. You've got to say, dear so-and-so. Write all the stuff you're going to write from Harry. Okay, you've got to be nice and formal, nice and polite. I did learn a little bit of French in high school. And it is interesting learning French, because they have a system where you have to speak differently to people older than you than younger than you. If I'm talking to someone older than me and I want to say hello, I have to say bonjour, which is hello. If I'm speaking to someone younger than me, I can just say salut, which is hi. A lot less formal, and that's just the way it is. So it is interesting learning another language like French because you learn their different social skills that they use with their language and their different cultural skills or their different culture and how they use language in a different way. I then went on to start doing reffing, which is really interesting because you learn how to speak to children younger than you as well as people older than you. And you do have a little bit of a position of power. So it's a different way of speaking to people. You do find that while you can be a lot more forceful with what you're saying, if people aren't listening, you still have to be polite. Because you are the professional there, they're not. You also have to learn how to speak to angry parents. Okay, you've got to speak in a calm way. Because at the end of the day, if you kick them out, not only are you kicking a parent out, but that poor child has to watch their father or mother get kicked out of a stadium and not watch them for the rest of the game. So you do have to be nice and respectful and calm when speaking to angry parents so that they can continue to watch and support their son or daughter. After high school, I went into employment and in a shoe warehouse, pickpacking, and you have to learn how to appropriately speak to managers. You got to use your language and literacy skills in a different way. Okay, and there's a lot more consequences. If you're inappropriate with what you're saying around fellow employees or managers, okay, you can just be straight up terminated, especially if you're in a warehouse. Okay, they can find people easily to replace you, so you're just straight gone if you mess around. During uni, having done a year of uni previous to this one, you do have to learn how to do appropriate writing and talking to teachers and lecturers. While it's still not as strict with talking to like high school teachers, you can use the first name in uni, you still have to be respectful and polite to your tutors and lecturers. My language and literacy journey it's a bit of a different approach during uni because you do have to be a lot more individually based with your learning. You do have to be a lot more pushing to finish assignments. There's a lot less people reminding you, hey, this is due tomorrow and all that kind of stuff. You have to be on top of it, which does mean you have to be a different way with your language and literacy. There's a big change in social interactions. Okay, you're not necessarily forming friendships, but you are talking to people. So you do have to be comfortable with how you speak, how you use your language with other people, especially if you're going to be in a group assignment with them. But it's a lot less formal than in high school. I believe these are the main things that came through my language and literacy journey. And I really think that my learning difficulties early on, such as, not being able to pronounce L's or just learning over time, does resemble the flickering of a flame. And then as you add wood, as I got knowledge on how to speak to people, I got I added wood to the flame, and it grew. It grew and became brighter. Okay, I became a stronger speaker later on, and I progressively learned and gained greater knowledge. So thanks for listening.